Flaherty was a guy that the Yankees had a preliminary trade agreement in place for, and then they looked at his medicals, didn't feel great about it, kind of backed out, and that enabled the Dodgers to jump in, and he has not had an issue with his back since.
MLB 9 Innings 24. Ken, great to talk to you. Hope you're enjoying this series. So you also wrote about the state of the bullpen for the Dodgers in this NLCS. So what do you have for us on where the Dodgers stand heading into 3 consecutive games to be played in New York?
They should be okay with regard to their bullpen. They have not used their high leverage guys in the last game and not even many of them in the first game. So they should be rested. That's the good news. The bad news is if this goes 6, they're going to have a bullpen game again. And I said on the broadcast before the game last night, and I wrote it today as well, bullpen games are problematic. They did a brilliant job, a masterful job in Game 4 of the division series against the Padres, but it's hard to pull that off repeatedly. You're basically asking every reliever to be perfect or the equation crumbles. And then yesterday they turned to Landon Knack. He was far from perfect, and the equation crumbled. So they've got Buehler going in Game 3. And then they've got, who am I missing, guys? Flaherty's in Game 5. Oh, Yamamoto's in Game 4. Yeah, Buehler, Yamamoto, Flaherty lined up. The bullpen game, if necessary, would be Game 6, and then they could go Buehler in Game 7. They should be in good shape, but Daniel Hudson was down yesterday. Alex Vesia is out, so their bullpen is not what it was in the division series, and that, too, is a problem. All that said, they still stand an excellent chance of winning this series, as do the Mets. It seems to me that this is going to be back and forth, and the two teams, they each have their strengths, they each have their weaknesses, and we're going to see this all play out. The Mets bullpen, which of course has been subject of much scrutiny, was pretty good yesterday. So, again, I'm looking forward to the next 3 games just to see all of it unfold.
Ken, the bullpen, first of all, the bullpen games go awry when one guy doesn't do what they're supposed to do, and all it takes is one guy to have one bad inning. Landon Knack had it yesterday, and it threw everything out of whack for Dave Roberts. So what can they expect from Buehler? Because he had one, he had not a great season. He had a decent start against the Padres, obviously. Not great, but decent. What do they expect out of him? And are they going to count on him, if it goes 7, to throw 2 games in this series?
Well, yes, and that's the way it's lined up. Now, what can you expect out of him? I think the answer to that, AJ, is we don't know. He has yet to go more than 6 innings this season. Remember, he was coming off Tommy John. Then he had the hip injury that cost him about 2 months. He has been up and down. Now, in the division series, that start he had, it was interesting. He gave up those runs in the 2nd inning. I believe it was 6. And a lot of that was ground balls getting through, plays not getting made. And then he settled down to pitch 3 scoreless innings. I believe it was that. So he showed something there. Showed a lot, actually, and set up really the whole pitching staff for the bullpen game that followed. What we will see tomorrow, I just don't know. I don't know that you can count on Walker Buehler to be the consistent Walker Buehler that he once was, the October version of Walker Buehler who burst onto the scene a few years back. At the same time, he's extremely competitive. We know that. He is working his way back. The Dodgers seem to be high on him right now, and they don't have much choice, guys. Most of their starting pitchers are hurt, so they're left with this group. Yamamoto has yet to go more than 5 innings since coming off the injured list. And then Flaherty was really good his last time. Can you expect 7 scoreless or 7 innings the way he pitched that one game? I don't know. So their pitching is problematic, whereas the Mets, it's a little bit more stable. You've got Severino, you've got Quintana, you've got the makings of a reasonable flow. Now, the problem there is I don't know that their bullpen can hold down the Dodgers in the late innings consistently in this series.
Well, that's what that brings up my question is you talked about, their bullpen's been consistent. Has their bullpen been consistent because Carlos Mendoza hasn't really had to go to too many guys? Like he's just stayed kind of like Bochy did last year with the Rangers. His 3 or 4 guys, and that is it. So is that a case of
Case of
We can fill in the blank and say anything.
Well, let me see if I can answer. I think I know where Eric was going. So I wouldn't say the Mets bullpen has been consistent. I don't know that any Mets fan would say the Mets bullpen has been consistent. The trust tree is not what it was. Obviously, they don't have that many guys that they can turn to, but Carlos Mendoza will manage this as best he can. And the fact that they have starters, guys who can go deeper into games, that does help them. So we'll see how it plays out. I will stand by what I said early in the series. I don't know that they have an answer for Ohtani in the late innings because of their lack of dominant left-handed relief. But at the same time, Ohtani's kind of in a funky place right now. So the beauty of this, guys, to me, is we can talk all we want. The games give us all the answers we need.
Okay, Ken. So was the Jack Flaherty, Michael Kopech, Tommy Edman, was that the best trade deadline acquisitions of any team? Because Jack Flaherty's 7 shutty, Kopech's a late inning weapon, and now Tommy Edman's playing shortstop, getting 3 hits every game. I mean, did the Dodgers just crush the trade deadline?
It certainly looks like that, right, AJ? And those were separate trades. Flaherty came in one, Kopech and Edman in another. The White Sox trade, which also included Eric Fetty going to St. Louis. We'll see what the White Sox ultimately come out of that with, but to me, they did not get enough for 3 guys that have value. That's where you start here. Yes, the Dodgers, remember, Flaherty was a guy that the Yankees had a preliminary trade agreement in place for, and then they looked at his medicals, didn't feel great about it, kind of backed out, and that enabled the Dodgers to jump in, and he has not had an issue with his back since and has pitched really well. Game 1 was brilliant. So that was really good. Edman has always been a good player. Remember, at the deadline, AJ, he hadn't played a single game this season. He was coming off that surgery. He just was kind of having a stop-and-start year. So when he is healthy, he's a very good player. We've seen that. And then Kopech, like so many relievers who go to L.A. and some of these other pitching-rich teams, he seemed to find another gear, and that is what has happened.
Okay, so Ken, when you get the World Series that you're rooting for, which is Yankees-Dodgers, what's it going to be like when Jack Flaherty takes the mound? Let's say he pitches in Yankee Stadium, pitches Game 5, the Dodgers win in 6, he starts, in Yankee Stadium. I mean, is the crowd going to be all over him? And let's say he goes out and shows. Is the crowd going to be – No, I know, but is the crowd – yeah, but you know how Yankee fans are, Ken. Come on, you're one of them. But will they be mad at Cashman? Will they be mad? Who are they going to be mad at? Aaron Boone, the team doctor? Are they going to figure out who the team doctor is and go find him and boo him? I mean, because if Jack Flaherty goes out and deals, I mean, Yankee fans are not going to be happy.
In the hypothetical scenario you suggest, and we've got to get there first, we've got to get Yankees, Dodgers for this even to come into play, they would be mad at Cashman, I think, because that was his decision to ultimately not execute that trade. And doctors have different opinions. We know this just from our own personal lives, right? You don't always have the same opinions issued by doctors for your own individual circumstances. And in this case, it seemed that the Yankees just felt for what they were giving up, it was too big a risk. Was that judgment not accurate? Probably not, the way we've seen this all evolve. But at the same time, they made their decision. They also had a good deadline. They did some good things at the deadline. Chaz Chisholm Jr., of course, being foremost among them. And as it turns out, AJ, honestly, their pitching is in really good shape right now. They've got starters, they've got relievers. It's a small group that they trust, but they're all performing really well, and they're in a good place.
So, Ken, I want to go back to the Dodgers and the Mets for a moment. A 2-part question for you. One, we were talking about how Steve Cohen said he wants to turn his franchise into the Dodgers of the East. So I'm curious, being around this team, what you've seen in terms of progress to get to that point, besides, of course, results. They're in the NLCS. That's huge. 2 is anything that differs from these franchises. Of course, I immediately look at the pitching because the Dodgers are having to scratch and claw everything together. Mets have a really nice traditional starting pitching setup. Dodgers have the hardest throwing minor league pitchers, and there are so many damn injuries, and Gavin Stone's injury pops up again yesterday because he gets shoulder surgery. So anyway, with all of that said, comparing and contrasting these 2 orgs at the moment, what do you think?
Well, it's interesting. The Mets did want to be the Dodgers. That's exactly what Steve Cohen said upon taking over the team. And what he was thinking was spend a lot of money early, get the team competitive again, which is exactly what the Dodgers did, and then at the same time build up the farm system. Now, they took some detours along the way. They signed Scherzer and Verlander, and then they traded them. But in those trades, they got young players. And we're starting to see now the young players factor into their mix. Vientos, Alvarez, Acuna is up and playing active in this series. And there will be others as well. As David Peterson is a farm system product. Tyler McGill. So it's kind of working the way they intended. And David Stearns now, as the president of baseball operations, he's a guy that, obviously with his experience in Milwaukee, knows how to at least develop players. Now, the spending part is not something he's necessarily familiar with, but he'll be able to handle that too. So, yeah, they're on their way toward being what they wanted to be when Cohen took over, I believe, in November 2020. It's taken a while, but they're getting there.
I want a quick hit on your great article about Doc Roberts, about Dave Roberts, manager for the Dodgers. He is not extended past 2025. You had a comment in the article saying, or maybe it was his comment, and you wrote it, that the games where his starters started were more stressful than the full-out bullpen game. Did he give any more context to that?
What he meant, Eric, is that when you have a starter in that kind of context, then you have to make the decision on when to pull him. And that can be tricky, as we all know. Bullpen game, you kind of have it mapped out. You do what you're going to do. Obviously, yesterday it didn't work out so well. Game 4 of the DS, it did. So it can be more problematic. And this was referring back to the Yamamoto game, in which he was really good for 5. And Bob Guerin, one of their coaches, said to me that it took some guts to pull him. I don't know that it really took guts because the top of the order was coming up. It was the right time. But that adds a layer of complexity to the decision-making. And that is what Roberts was talking about. Now, he'll like that scenario if he gets it in Game 3 with Buehler, in Game 4 with Yamamoto, and in Game 5 with Flaherty. If these guys are going deep enough where he's got to make a decision, he's good with that, believe me.
But he wants to get him out of there. He's worried about the third time through. Did he ever mention anything about third time through with his relievers going 3 and 4 times in a series?
Eric, basically the third time through is almost a staple of the game now. And it's very rare when a starting pitcher is allowed to go much beyond that in the postseason. We saw it with Flaherty the other nights, for sure, but he was going really well. And the numbers suggest that third time through doesn't always work. Now, what's really interesting, guys, is we've got 3 games in a row coming up. And we've got 5 games in 6 days, potentially, with the series the way it's playing out. The Dodgers bullpen is going to be worn out a little bit. The Mets bullpen is going to be worn out a little bit. And how they're going to get to the finish line, that's one of the questions I have here. Because remember, Hudson was down yesterday. Vesia is out. Blake Trinan, 37 years old. So can these guys all keep it going? I don't know. And that's one of the issues that the Dodgers are facing right now.
Ken, I want to take you out of the playoffs just for one topic. Obviously, we'll get to plenty of offseason talk after the World Series ends, but this one I think was just too pressing, and I don't think we've talked about it yet. The Minnesota Twins are for sale. Your colleague at The Athletic, Aaron Gleeman, wrote a brilliant article on history, misery, everything that's added up for 4 decades of the Pohlads owning the team and a third-generation owner now calling it quits, essentially, and getting out of the business. What are your thoughts on what you've seen from either that article or just covering the Twins over these years and how I've seen the fan base exploding over this news in a happy way?
Yes, and their fans, like a number of other fan bases in other cities, are at a point where they are extremely frustrated with the current ownership. And I could name 5 or 6 other teams in the same situation with their fans. I actually wrote about this not so long ago, and I don't even think I included the Twins in that article. But certainly the frustration with the Pohlads was there. They went backward on payroll last year after a playoff season when they should have been going forward. And it just seems like they don't want to make the Pohlads the commitment that fans would like to see them make. Now, teams are never going to spend enough money for fans' liking. We all get that, and we all understand that it can be frustrating when billionaires are not putting money into the team the way they should in the opinions of fans. At the same time, maybe some new energy will do this team good. It seems to me one of the reasons they're getting out is the regional television situation that is kind of flummoxing every team or involved in that situation. So we'll see what happens. But yes, the reaction of the fan base, sure. It told you where the fans were with the Pohlads, and they're ready for someone else. Now, I will say this. The person coming in might not be any better than the person coming out, but at least in this particular case, it seems like change for change's sake would be welcome in Minnesota and will be welcome.
Ken, I'm going to use your favorite interview guy, Kike Hernandez's quote. Twins fans don't give up, okay? They just want new grass. The grass. Are we? Are we, Ken? Because you didn't seem like you were very happy when that live shot went out over there. You kind of were like, okay, we're done. Let's see who else I can find. But
well, AJ, should I have been happy?
I don't know. It's not your money you got to pay the fine for.
You didn't say it.
All right, but before we go, I do have to ask you this. Ken, I am honored that you came on today because I know you guys, your chartered plane last night was very late, right? So what time did you guys get in? And were you on which charter were you on? Were you on the talent charter, which was the nice one, or were you on the crew charter?
We were on a commercial plane, a number of us.
Oh!
Yeah, we flew and we left at 9 and we got in at 5 in the morning. It was a red eye. So, yeah, it's not the best situation. AJ, you've been there before. You know that.
Yeah, but I figured, with you, Ken, you'd have, got Smoltz and Davis to charter a flight, and you just would have sat like in the jump seat and rode and, enjoyed your martini and sipped on your champagne. But I will say this, you're mad because the crew all got Chick-fil-A on their flight. So, I never seen people from California react like they got Chick-fil-A. Like down here, there's a Chick-fil-A on every corner. So those excited. Northerners and the California people get that Chick-fil-A. It's like Christmas Day, man. Like, yeah, we got Chick-fil-A.
AJ, I was good. Just know that. I was good.
Oh, your caviar, your champagne and caviar in first class was just fine, right, Ken?
He was taken care of.
Oh,
yes, exactly. Well, you look well rested, Ken. Enjoy this 3-game set coming up in New York. It's going to be freaking wild. We'll talk to you later this week.
You know why Ken flew on the first class plane instead of on the charter? Because Ken doesn't give them.
Stop. Thank you, Ken. Sorry for my colleague.
I understand. It's all good.
See ya.
See you guys.
Ken Rosenthal. See ya. You'll see him on Fox, of course, for the next 3 games coming up in Queens, and then maybe more if it goes back to LA for the NLCS. Then, of course, World Series after that. It is powered by MLB 9 Innings 24, talking about Inside Scoop. You can get this game, MLB 9 Innings 24, by scanning the QR code on your screen and downloading MLB 9 Innings 24. It's the best baseball game in the palm of your hands, all the latest from the 2024 season, and it looks and it sounds like this. That commercial's sick. Watch.
Wow, not bad for only one MVP. Here's how a 3-time winner does it.
That's cute. Call me when you get to 6:30.
Whatever.
Hey, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.